Hey guys, Scott here, and today I want to give my first impressions on Wesker for the patch 6.2, and I have almost nothing but good things to say about Wesker. There's a couple of problems with I think the chapter in general. The maps, for example, are just a whole separate discussion because they are very bad. But Wesker himself is actually really, really fun and also very strong in my opinion. Now, the one thing that makes me a bit hesitant to give him like a tier already is that he's very bugged right now. Sometimes his power just completely stops working on the PTB. Sometimes he just doesn't hit people through vaults and things like that. Sometimes he hits people through Dead Hard. Sometimes he doesn't grab people through Dead Hard. It's very, very inconsistent and buggy, and I can't gauge the killer strength accurately until I know which one of these things is intended or not intended, because they happen sometimes but not other times. So I'm just going to ignore all of those things and just give a basic rundown of how he plays. And he plays, in my opinion, sort of like, I don't know, he's pretty unique, honestly. He's not quite like Blight. He's a little bit Demogorgon, a little bit Nurse. It's pretty hard to compare him to another killer, in my opinion, which is good. I think that's a good thing. So his whole power is essentially a charger from Left 4 Dead with 2 charges. If you've never played Left 4 Dead before, a charger charges into a survivor, and then they bash them into a wall if there's a wall in front of him. If there's no wall in front of him, they just sort of toss them to the side. And that's basically exactly what Wesker does. Now, when he hits you with his power, your infection meter starts growing up, and this infection is an infection you have to cleanse because it puts the hinder status on you, which slows you down from 5 to 8%. Which is very, very significant. That is a huge hinder. I think that's the strongest source of hinder in the entire game. It is a massive slowdown, so you have to cure that shit. You can't ignore infection. So he has inherent slowdown with that. He also has somewhat decent map control because his power actually is faster than walking places. It's significantly faster. I think it's like 20% faster than simply walking somewhere. So it's not going to be like Dredge where you're teleporting across the map or anything like that. But you can use your power to get around. And it's because the first charge goes a bit shorter and the second charge goes way further. So as long as you have a straightaway that allows for those, you can even do turns around stuff because you can turn after the first charge. You can traverse the map a bit faster. That being said, probably his weakest aspect is map control because that's all he has for map control. But he's got good pressure with the infections because you do have to go around and cleanse yourself because, running around at 90-something% movement speed you can feel it on Survivor. It's rough. Now, his actual power itself, the applications of it. Loops that are not effective are loops that basically, this is probably why I like this killer so much, because loops that he's effective at are loops that Demogorgon is effective at, and I love Demo. So when you have any generic tile, like a LLT wall, a jungle gym, shack, anything like that, he kind of slaps, because he can go around one corner and then charge around the other, slam you into a wall, and that's a free damaging state. Loops that he's not super good on are like, for example, the Ormond rock loops. They're very short loops, but they're just sort of round, and you can't really draw like a line like that to connect with somebody, so you're better off just barreling through those. Now, the good thing is those loops are pretty weak. You pretty much last 5-10 seconds. So once they kick it and start running somewhere else, then you catch up with your power. That's the whole point. Now, he can also vault over pallets, and this is extremely useful sometimes. It's extremely useful on things like God pallets. If you're on, the game, and you're in that area in your basement where you've got a God pallet, and there's no way around it, and normally you just have to kick it, vaulting it in that scenario is great because the survivor has no other option but to simply run away. However, if it's a very short loop, there's no real point in vaulting, because by the time you're off cooldown and you meet them back around the loop again, they can just vault it again. You've not really accomplished anything. So there's a time and a place to use this vault, and when you do use it, it's extremely useful because the cooldown is quite short. So it negates having to kick God pallets. You can just vault over them, and that'll be, very strong for certain scenarios. A big problem I'm seeing is people trying to vault pallets like in the middle of jungle gyms and stuff like that. That's just simply not going to work. It's not meant for that. It's meant for God pallets that you are forced to kick, and then you'll be able to get value from that. Hitting his power is extremely easy. The hitbox is giant, which is both a positive and a negative, because the positive aspect of it is if the survivor is very close to you, you pretty much can't miss. Now, if they're a decent distance away, they can have time to dodge, but if they're like next to you, you can't miss. It pretty much occupies your entire screen. So it's basically impossible to dodge at melee range. But at the same time, the hitbox is so wide that if you're trying to navigate around loops, you might end up hitting walls and stuff instead, which will cut your charge down short, which can be frustrating. So again, it's mostly meant for tiles that are have straightaways, shack, and things like that. Super, super good and things like that. And even just for getting around, it's nice. But I think by far the most important thing for me, aside from him appearing to be quite strong, is he's just fun. He's just so fun to play. The sound effects The music, the little corny quips he does, the actual charge effect feels so good. Just slamming a survivor into a wall. You can slam survivors into other survivors, which also injures the other survivors. So if people try to body block, you can literally yeet them into each other. It just has so many super fun things going for it that this is, I think, the most fun killer I've played probably ever. I think this is the most fun killer in the game, in my opinion. He is just incredibly fun. A couple of frustrations with bugs and stuff like that. I'm curious to see what is going to be fixed. But overall, my first impressions of Wesker are not only is he going to be a very strong killer, because he is going to be a strong killer, but he's so fun. I could easily see maining this guy. He is great. One of the best additions they made to the game, I think, in a very long time. Probably next video, I'll go over more things like the perks and stuff like that. I guess I can go over his perks right now. It still pertains to him, right? His perks, Terminus, yeah, it's whatever. It's not that great. People saying, oh, it's good for adrenaline, right? Well, it's only good for adrenaline when you're going from injured to full, not from down to injured. So if you have two people slug, someone pops a gen and adrenaline, they still get up. So it doesn't really save that snowbally effect. So it's just not very good in my opinion. Superior Anatomy is actually really funny. It's a bit finicky with how short the trigger radius is. It's only 8 meters, so you need to be pretty close behind them. But that with Bamboozle, and then if you vault with your power, it's like Legion vaulting over pallets. It's pretty damn funny. I do like it. But yeah, overall, I'm not too sure. Now, situational awareness is going to be terrifying when you have like a nurse with starstruck agitation and that, because they're going to see where everyone is. When they hook them, they still see the aura blink on top of them one shot. It's going to be a nightmare on nurse. It's going to make nurse so obnoxious to go against. So look forward to that shit. But yeah, his perks overall are pretty good. Terminus, I think, is his weakest one. But yeah, I think they did an excellent job with Wesker. Once his bugs are figured out, I will, give a final opinion on how strong I think he is, because again, it's a little too hard to tell how strong he's going to be right now with how busted he is. But I think they did an excellent job. Most fun killer I've played, I think, since ever. I will 100% main this dude when he comes out. And that's pretty much all I've got to say about Wesker. I think next video I'm going to talk about the survivor perks, like reassurance completely canceling out camping entirely. Then we'll go over maps and things like that, but I want to break them up into separate videos just so they're easier to find and so I can make more money. Fuck!